Well, I believe you, Huck. I run off. Jim! But mind, you said you wouldn't tell. You know you said you wouldn't tell, Huck. Well, I did. I said I wouldn't, and I'll stick to it. Honest Injun, I will. People would call me a low-down abolitionist and despise me for keeping mum, but that don't make no difference. I ain't a-going to tell, and I ain't a-going back there anyways, so now let's know all about it. Well, you see, it was this way. Ol' Missus, that's Miss Watson, she pecks on me all the time and treats me pooty rough, and she always says she wouldn't sell me down to Orleans. But I noticed they was a nigger trade around the place considerable lately, and I begin to get uneasy. Well, one night I creeps to the door pooty late, and it don't want quite shut, and I hear ol' Missus tell the widder she gwine to sell me to Orleans, but she didn't want to, but she could get $800 for me, and it is such a big stack of money she couldn't resist. The widder, she tried to get her to say she wouldn't do it, but I never waited to hear the rest. I lit out mighty quick, I tell you. I tuck out and shin down the hill and spect to steal a skift along the show somewheres above the town, but they was people a-stirring yet, so I hid in the old tumble-down copper shop on the bank to wait for everybody to go away. Well, I was there all night. They was somebody round all the time. 'Long about 6 in the morning, skiffs begun to go by, and 'bout 8 or 9, every skift that went along was talking about how yo' pap come over to town and says you's killed. These last skiffs was full of ladies and gentlemen a-going over for to see the place. Sometimes they'd pull up at the shore and take a rest before they started across, so by the talk I got to know all about the killing. I was powerful sorry you's killed, Huck, but I ain't no more now. I laid there under the shavings all day. I was hungry, but I weren't afeared, because I knowed ol' Missus and the widder was going to start to the camp meeting right after breakfast and be going all day, and they knows I goes off with the cattle 'bout daylight, so they wouldn't 'spect to see me round the place, and so they wouldn't miss me till after dark in the evening. The other servants wouldn't miss me, 'cause they'd shin out and take holiday soon as the old folks is out'n the way. Well, when it come dark I tuck out up the river road and went 'bout 2 miles or more to get where they warn't no houses. I'd made up my mind 'bout what I was a-gwine to do. You see, if I kept on trying to get away afoot, the dogs 'd track me. If I stole a skiff to cross over, they'd miss that skiff, you see, and they'd know about where I land on the other side, and where to pick up my track. So I says, a raft is what I's after. It don't make no track. I see a light a-comin' round the point by'n by, so I wade in, and shove a log ahead of me and swum more'n halfway across the river, and got in 'mongst the driftwood and kept my head down low, and kinder swum against the current till the raft come along. Then I swum to the stern of it and tuck a holt. It clouded up, and it was pretty dark for a little while, so I clumb up and laid down on the planks. The men is all way yonder in the middle, where the lantern was. The river was a-risin', and they was a good current, so I reckoned that by 4 in the morning I'd be 25 mile down the river, and then I'd slip in just before daylight and swim ashore and take to the woods on the Illinois side. But I didn't have no luck. When we was most down to the head of the island, a man began to come aft with the lantern. I see it weren't no use for to wait, so I slid overboard and struck out for the island. Well, I had a notion I could land most anywheres, but I couldn't. Bank too bluff. I was most to the foot of the island before I found a good place. I went into the woods and jegged I wouldn't fool with rafts no more, long as they moved their lantern round so. I had my pipe and a plugger dog leg and some matches in my cap, and they warn't wet, so I was all right. And so you ain't had no meat nor bread to eat all this time? Why didn't you get mud turkles? How you going to get 'em? You can't slip up on 'em and grab 'em, and how's a body going to hit 'em with a rock? How could a body do it in the night? And I warn't going to show myself on the bank in daytime. Well, that's so. You've had to keep in the woods all the time, of course. Did you hear 'em shooting the cannon? Oh, yes, I knowed they was arter you. I see 'em go by here, watched 'em through the bushes. Some young birds come along, flying a yard or two at a time, and lightin'. Jim said it was a sign it was going to rain. He said it was a sign when young chickens flew that way, and so he reckoned it was the same way when young birds done it. I was going to catch some of them, but Jim wouldn't let me. He said it was death. He said his father laid mighty sick once, and some of them catched a bird, and his old granny said his father would die, and he did. And Jim said you mustn't count the things you are going to cook for dinner, because that would bring bad luck. the same if you shook the tablecloth after sundown. And he said if a man owned a beehive and that man died, the bees must be told about it before sunup the next morning, or else the bees would all weaken down and quit work and die. Jim said bees wouldn't sting idiots, but I didn't believe that because I had tried them lots of times myself, and they wouldn't sting me. I had heard about some of these things before, but not all of them. Jim knowed all kinds of signs. He said he knowed most everything. I said it looked to me like all the signs was about bad luck, so I asked him if there weren't any good luck signs. He says, "Mighty few, and dey ain't no use to a body. What you want to know when good luck's a-comin' for? Want to keep it off?" And he said, "If you's got hairy arms and a hairy breast, it's a sign dat you's a-gwine to be rich. Well, dey's some use in a sign like dat, 'cause it's so fur ahead. You see, maybe you's got to be po' a long time first, and so you might get discouraged and kill yourself if you didn't know by the sign dat you gwine to be rich by. Have you got hairy arms and a hairy breast, Jim?" "What's the use to ax dat question? Don't you see I has?" "Well, are you rich?" "No, but I been rich once, and I gwine to be rich again. Once I had $14, but I tuck to speculatin' and got busted out." "What did you speculate in, Jim?" "Well, first I tackled stock." "What kind of stock?" "Why, livestock, cattle, you know. I put $10 in a cow, but I ain't gwine to resk no mo' money in stock. The cow up and died on my hands." "So you lost the $10? "No, I didn't lose it all. I only lost about 9 of it. I sold a hide and taller for $1.10. "You had $1.10 left. Did you speculate any more?" "Yes. You know that one-legged nigger that belongs to old Mr. Bradish? Well, he set up a bank, and say anybody that put in $1 would get $4 more